Welcome to Inside the Zone with Blake Sebring in the News Sentinel. I'm Glenn Marini, and we are to the final week, hard to believe, of the regular season, getting ready for the playoffs. And man, the Comets this past weekend, they clinched their 10th straight playoff appearance. So that's a good thing.
52nd out of 60 years.
Yeah, that's not too
shabby. Yeah,
that's not too bad. The percentages are very much on their side. But I think one thing people don't realize is how close the standings are as we come into this final week of the regular season. You're talking the Comets first with 81, Evansville second with 80, Rapid City right there at third with 78.
And they got to play Evansville this week too.
So it could be really tight. Missouri 76, and really Quad City's not totally out of it. They've got 72.
And they have the easiest schedule out of the four.
Aside from a trip to the Coliseum on Wednesday.
Well, and lately, who knows how that's going to be?
Well, actually, we'd feel better if that game was in Quad City based on the way things have gone this season.
Really, the Comets are stronger on the road because they stick with one system and they just play it and they're all comfortable with it and they make their opportunities from it. And then when they come home, they try mixing systems and doing different things, and it doesn't seem to work as well.
Is that kind of a pack mentality when you know you're everybody against the fans, everybody against the rest of the people out there? I mean, it's easier to do that on the road than when you're at home?
Well, look at it this way. They give up a lot fewer breakaways on the road than they do at home. A lot fewer odd man rushes. It's because they play the trap and they just stifle the opponents so much. They try to do that at home, and it doesn't quite work as well because they're not attacking the defense. They're boring that way. And it is a just boring style. Especially if you get another team that's playing the trap too, and then it's dry as toast. I mean, it's really awful to watch, but it does win, and you don't worry about entertaining as much on the road.
Where do you see the Comets finishing in the standings? I know last week you said you'd bet on them finishing first, but you take a look. They got Quad City on Wednesday night, so you know QC is fighting for a playoff spot. They're going to come here and play as hard as they can, and then you've got Dayton at home Friday, at Dayton on Saturday, and then Dayton back home here at the Coliseum on Sunday. Brian Gratz's team, they're out of it, but we've seen how hard they play late in the season when the games don't technically matter to them as far as the standings go.
It don't matter to Brian.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know they'll play hard. And, those guys are playing for jobs. And they really are, because there will probably be fewer teams next year than there are this year. So everybody is really playing for a job. I still think the Comets are going to finish first. I just think that they have the overall depth, and I think the win Saturday night was big for them to get their confidence back, and a little bit different in the locker room after that game than the last few.
As far as the personnel goes, we've had some relatively big changes, especially late in the season. You don't really like to see the roster get turned over. Artem Podshenilov going back to Russia. That was announced last week. He's looking to
and what
stick
happened
with the
right
team
away
next year.
When that happened?
Well, they got Mike.
No. What happened? Besides that, what happened to his two line mates last weekend?
Well,
Chris Auger and Colin Chalk took off.
And they played well.
They played well.
Because, as you have mentioned, although speedy, extremely talented, also extremely unpredictable.
Yes, and Colin didn't have to look over his shoulder and say, oh, crap, I got to get back on defense because I know Artie won't. And Colin had 6 points in 2 games. And played really, really well.
And Voskovich came in and played well, too.
Came in and played really well.
Well, when you come in and you get an assist on the
first goal.
The first line shift that you play on.
Yeah, knocking the stick out of Cayley's hands on his way out to the ice. He was so excited to get out there. Yeah.
Is that going to be a good thing? I don't want to knock on Artem because obviously 18 goals when he was here, the speed, breakaways, he was
It's just that Artem never progressed. That's the problem there. I mean, they spent so much time and energy trying to get him to come back and play defense and just be aware of that half of the ice that it was all wasted. It was just wasted. It wasn't going to happen. But Vescivio does that.
So you see it as maybe a little addition by subtraction?
No, not at all. It's just a change. It's just a different. I see Vescivio as a much more physical player, which is much more important in the playoffs than a dancer, than a real artistic finesse guy, because the playoffs are all about endurance and in taking the hits and giving the hits and surviving and just moving on. It's not about pretty goals at all, and Vescivio is not a pretty goals guy. He can score them, but most of his are going to be right around the net.
Comets today also add a big guy, big defenseman, 6'4", 220, T.J. Miller. He's off waivers from Wichita, played for a couple of teams in the CHL this year. A former NHL draft pick. Where do you see this guy fitting in, especially down the stretch?
Well, they had 5 defensemen last weekend because Dustin Molly's, it just didn't work out. And they had to do that. They had to see because, Dustin, the first half of the season, you could argue he was the best defenseman out there. And then he got hurt. And if he could have got back to that level, that would have been like trading for the best player that anybody else in the league could have gotten if they could have got him back to full strength. But they had to find out for sure. And it didn't work out, so now they went out and got TJ, and they're going to try him out, and they'll give him 6 defensemen. And they're going to try, you've got Steranki, who's eligible to come off IR on Wednesday if Tyler doesn't work out. But you got to play him the 3 games or 4 games and see how it works.
Does that just add to their depth? Because really, when you look at Miller, the size is the thing that really gets you. And they've had good luck with guys that size, especially Henley, a 6'7" guy.
Well, you've got the offense in Frankie and Jamie, and you've got Henley and Molly, who are rocks. I mean, those 4 are set, and then you've got Lovell, and you've got that 6th spot. They've been trying to figure out what to do with that 6th spot all year. And Al always likes to keep 7 defensemen for the playoffs too, because a defenseman can play forward a lot easier than a forward can play defense if necessary. So it'll be interesting to see.